The principal was coming to observe my lesson, and I braced myself for groans, complaints, maybe even a few eye rolls. Instead, my students lit up. "We'll practice it," one of them said. Practice? What were they talking about? That's when they told me every other teacher made them rehearse fake lessons before an observation. Whole scripts, memorized answers, even synchronized board work. I stood at the front of the classroom, trying to sound calm and collected despite my growing nerves. "Hey everyone," I began. "The principal is coming in tomorrow to observe my lesson." A collective groan rippled through the students. I expected the usual response, eye rolls, maybe some whispered jokes, but then, out of nowhere, James leant forward with a gleeful grin. "We can practice it." I froze, a little unsure. "Practice it? Like how?" I asked, unsure if I had misheard him. "You know, a fake lesson, so you don't mess up," he said, leaning back confidently. I squinted at him. "Wait, you're telling me teachers actually do that?" The entire class seemed to come alive all at once, eyes lighting up with stories. "Oh yeah," Maria chimed in. "Our teachers totally do it, all the time." I stared. "You can't be serious. They rehearse lessons with you, as in pretend lessons." They all nodded vigorously. "No way," I said, half smiling, trying to sound skeptical. "No teacher would actually..." Before I could finish my thought, Hannah cut in, voice dropping a little like she was sharing a secret. "They do. It's wild, sir. You should hear all about Miss Lamb." I leant forward against my desk, arms crossed, trying to remain disbelieving. "Miss Lamb?" "Oh yeah," James said casually, like this was no big deal. "She has us memorize entire conversations. She acts out every step of the lesson with us while we follow her. Every word is rehearsed. It's like we're in a play." I tried to hide my amusement. "Wait, like a script? You're saying she has you guys memorize dialogue?" "Exactly," Maria confirmed. "And not just like with maths or science, she's got full scripts. For example, last week, she had us pretend to answer a maths question on the board while we were saying things like, 'Let's break this problem into manageable steps,' in perfect monotone. We were literally acting." I blinked. "That sounds bizarre." "Wait till you hear about Mr. Lee," Hannah said with a sly grin. "Mr. Lee?" I repeated, unsure if this was a prank. "Yep. Oh, he's the king of rehearsals," James said. "The guy has a checklist for every answer we're supposed to give. He makes us stand at the board and memorize scripted responses like we're prepping for a game show." "Memorized responses?" I repeated, trying not to laugh. "Yep," Maria confirmed. "One time, we had to memorize how to solve 37x divided by 4, while performing a little dance at the same time. You know, to keep it engaging for the principal." "A dance?" I asked, stunned. "Yeah," Maria said, deadpan. "We did synchronized hand gestures while saying, 'Step 2, let's divide by 4,' like we were auditioning for Dance Mums." I could feel my jaw drop. "That's unbelievable." "Then there's Mrs. Lowe," James added with a shudder. "She took it even further. Instead of just answering questions on the board, she brought in flowcharts." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean flowcharts?" "Yeah, flowcharts. They weren't just normal flowcharts," Hannah said, laughing now. "They were elaborate, dramatic things with arrows pointing in every direction. She even made us yell at the board, 'Crucial step 3!' while we were drawing them, as if our lives depended on explaining the reasoning behind moving the variable to isolate x." I was shaking my head. This can't be real, guys. You're pulling my leg, right? But their faces were entirely serious, a mix of pride and horror as they recounted these stories. I promise you, Maria said, every single word. Mr. Lee even set off the fire alarm during one of his mock lessons because we were rehearsing a physics experiment. We were supposed to be reviewing forces. How did you set off a fire alarm during a lesson? I asked, flabbergasted. Well, James said casually, it was supposed to be a demo on gravity, but he got a little bit carried away with the model rocket engine. He was meant to show us the relationship between force and acceleration, but all he showed us was how fast we could clear the building. The entire class was laughing now. I tried to remain composed, but it was no use. They had fully convinced me that this wasn't some elaborate prank. You guys are serious, right? I said, still chuckling. So all these teachers run rehearsals. Like, they prep the whole lesson with you like you're actors. Every time, Maria confirmed. And if you don't memorize your part, they'll remind you. Miss Lamb will keep us after school for hours, reviewing every line until we get it right. She says, authenticity is key. I leapt back, amazed. Well, that's a very unique approach to teaching. James laughed. Oh, you haven't seen anything. We could tell you all about their role-playing strategies. Miss Lowe once made us pretend to run experiments with goggles and lab coats while she narrated in a monotone voice for 3 periods. By the end of their recounting, I wasn't sure if I was shocked, amused, or just bewildered. I still didn't believe every story, but there was a kernel of truth buried in the tales. And honestly, they sounded far too ridiculous not to be at least partially true. Who knew? Teaching wasn't just about covering curriculum anymore. It was full-blown performance art. And I never looked at another teacher the same way again. I like stories that sit in the back of your mind long after they're done. If you're the same, you might like what's coming up next.